So my how to buy from a dealership video did very well, so thank you all for that support. I'm glad it resonated, but it also apparently made it sound like a nightmare because I've been inundated with comments from people asking me to make a video about buying private party instead. I'm no expert, but I have picked up a few things over the last decade of buying and selling motorcycles, and I'm happy to share with you my top 10 tips for buying private party. Before we jump into that, I just want to say thanks to Quadlock for sponsoring this video. There are a ton of advantages to buying a motorcycle from a private party, another person, versus going to a dealership and buying one there. Obviously, you're not paying dealer fees or getting the runaround garbage. There's no hidden fees like a reconditioning fee that they don't tell you about until you're ready to sign on the dotted line. What you see is what you pay. That's a lot more straightforward and easier in a lot of ways. Buying from a private party is cheaper, usually. Dealers always want to do a crazy markup and try to charge you for all kinds of things. You can't get a decent low blue book price from a dealer unless you work really hard or they've just been sitting on something for a very long time. They're always going to be right up around high book value at the minimum. When you buy from a private party, pricing is more flexible. Negotiation is more possible. When you shop private party, there is a much wider variety of models and years to choose from, especially if you're willing to drive a little ways. Within a couple hours drive from you, there's probably thousands of different motorcycles that might fit the description of what you're looking for. Private sellers will also sometimes have stashes of stuff like the original parts that came off the bike. You can get extras with it. I just bought that DRZ and it had, I'm not joking you, 10 oil filters in the box of parts that he gave me. So there are some bonuses there that you won't see buying from a dealership, some unexpected cool little side things, extra mods, whatever that you sometimes get private party. And the big advantage to buying private party is that a private seller will know the bike's history, at least while they've had it. So they'll know how it's been ridden, what the maintenance records look like, all of that. Dealer's gonna have no idea. Sometimes they have like a vague idea, like, yeah, this guy traded this in on a bigger bike, but that's all you really know. When you buy private party, you can ask the owner about the bike and how it's been taken care of. Buying private party is not all sunshine and roses though. There are some disadvantages. One, some sellers are just straight up delusional. I know what I've got, or I've added $2,000 in mods, stuff like that. Mods don't increase the value. They make your sale easier, but you don't get to add what you paid in mods to the used price of your bike. If you want that money back, you have to take the mods off and sell them separately. Because what if I wanted different mods? You spending money on that bike has no bearing on what I want to do with it. I'm not paying for those, and most people don't. But some people don't understand that. Like sometimes you'll see a bike listed for more than the retail price. Like you'll see a 2-year-old Tenere with $1,000 and stuff on it, $1,000 over MSRP. There is no reason to buy that bike when you could just go to the dealer and buy a new one. Makes no sense to me. Buying private party, bike conditions vary and there are no guarantees. There's no way to know if the owner did any maintenance, and some will unfortunately straight up lie about issues hoping you don't notice them. So you've got to be a little bit more discerning. That's not to say a dealership won't screw you over, but at least you have some recourse. You can go back to the dealership and or ask if they've had their service department look it over. Financing is harder when you buy private party, particularly on bikes older than 5 years old. Sometimes they won't let you finance them at all. Cash deals are always preferred, so if you have to finance, it can get very complicated. Sometimes you have to go to the bank with them to get the title out of the bank. Sometimes they have to come to your bank so that they can give the bank the title so that you can get the money to hand it to them. Financing a used purchase gets very complicated. It is much easier to finance through a dealership because it's just one-stop shop, sign and you're done. Another disadvantage of buying used is you have to go to someone's house or meet them in public. This can range from awesome, I actually met McLevin this way, selling him some luggage racks, to horrifyingly sketchy. If you're not really into that, buying private party may not be the best option for you. Buying private party is a crapshoot, and when you're buying private party, you can only look at one bike at a time, sometimes two if they have to. Dealerships will have 10 bikes you can look at all in one place at least. So dealerships are better maybe for deciding what you're gonna buy, and then once you've narrowed it down, it's sometimes better to go private party to get the best deal, but there are advantages and disadvantages to both. Now that you've decided, based on that private party is the way you wanna go, I wanna share my top 10 tips for buying private party with you, but before we jump into that, let's talk about the first accessory you should put on your bike once you buy it. I have been using the Quadlock system for 10 years, quite literally since 2016 when I got my very first motorcycle. Quadlocks have been on every single motorcycle I've owned. The Quadlock case has been on every phone I've owned for the last 10 years. They've been sponsoring the channel for a while now. I'm just really excited to announce we just signed another deal, and they'll continue to sponsor the channel for the foreseeable future. Quadlock system has two parts. First is the mount that goes on your motorcycle. They have about 1 billion ways to mount to your motorcycle. You you can do the brake reservoir, you can go to the mirror mount, you can go to the handlebars, you can mount it to your GPS bar, you put the mount on the bike, you add the vibration dampener. I'm a big fan of the wireless charging head, which they also sell. They have a page on their website where you can configure the whole setup at once, so you don't have to guess about what goes with what. It just tells you right there. Their configurator tool is super useful. The second part is a case that you put on your phone. It's a sturdy TPU case, doesn't add a lot of bulk to your phone. You just snap the case into the mount when you're riding. Vibration dampener keeps your phone camera from getting damaged. Your navigation's right there. Your music control is right there. Everything you need is right there on the handlebars, securely attached. Y'all know I crash plenty. I've yet to have a quad lock come off the bars. With the wireless charging head, your phone charges while you're using it, while you're riding. It keeps it charged while you're using navigation. It's just incredibly convenient. There's a quad lock on every bike I own, and they're my favorite mounting system by far. Highly recommended by me personally after 10 years of use. I will put a link in the description for you so you can check that out, get your very own quad lock, and thanks again to them for sponsoring this video and the channel. Honestly, I could talk about used motorcycle buying for an hour, but that would be way too much to remember and not really useful. So what I'm gonna do is just share my top 10 tips for buying a motorcycle from another person. Number one, get the Blue Book and the JD Power values, because sometimes they vary wildly. I just type in KBB motorcycle, because it's kbb.com/motorcycle, I think, for the Blue Book, and then I just do JD Power motorcycle values. It used to be NADA, N-A-D-A, but they've changed it and now it's JD Power. JD Power doesn't always have everything, but it's good to have both and kind of figure out a range in between. You need that information. But at the same time, those values are not the end all be all, because it can vary wildly by region. Dual sports here in the Pacific Northwest are very expensive compared to other parts of the country. So you also need to go on Marketplace, Craigslist, whatever, and look for the bike you're looking for and see what the prices look like. Because if they're just consistently $2,000 over Blue Book, you know that's probably what you're gonna pay. That's just the way it is where you are. If the price is crazy high, and you have the information from JD Power and KBB, I will sometimes go into the conversation with, hey, I love that bike. The price is a little high compared to Blue Book. High Book is $7,500. Any chance you can get close to that? That way they know that you know what it's worth, and you know right away whether they're gonna be reasonable or not based on that information. But if you don't have that information, you can't do that. Two, time of year is important. Dual sports are cheap in the fall and the winter and expensive in the spring. Demand matters. Everybody's gearing up to get new bikes and have new adventures in the spring, so you're dealing with and competing with those people. And in the fall, everyone's like, oh, I'm not really riding this, I should sell it. I can never wait, but just that's information to have. Number three, and I just wish, if you take nothing else to heart, as a seller, I want you to take this information to heart. Please be a person. Please be a person. I despise when I'm selling something on Marketplace and the first message I get is a number. Not high, not even the is this available, which I also hate because robots do that. I don't know if you're a robot, say something else, but just a number, and it's always, or almost always when they do that, some ridiculous lowball. Like I've got a bike listed for $4,000, they're like, $2,500. Yeah, that's a good way to just get straight up ignored. Start out with a question, something at least like a statement. Prove you're a human. Hey, nice bike. I've been looking for one like that. Any chance you'd be willing to come down to X is much better than is this available? Or hey, nice bike. I've been looking for one just like that. Do you have the title in hand? Ask the clarifying question about the listing before you start throwing numbers at people. Get a sense for the person and also let them see that you're a reasonable person. Your overall deal-making process will be much easier if you take a minute to act like a human being and not an undercutting, lowballing robot. Here's one thing that's changed over the time I've been buying. It used to be kind of rude to try to negotiate a price before you've seen the bike. Like that's the kind of thing you should do in person. But nowadays, it's like you usually at least can figure out, or you should figure out if they're gonna move on price at all before you go, because nobody wants to drive out and look at a bike if they're just not gonna be reasonable pricing wise. After a few questions, it's okay to ask, you know, hey, can you come down to this price? Is there any wiggle room in your price? Would you consider selling it for less? Because people do that now ahead of time. So when you're either talking to them online or when you get there, ask about maintenance records. It's not a deal breaker if they don't have them, but if they do, and or they've done dealership services so you can look it up there, that's incredibly invaluable information to have. That is particularly important with bikes that have major services at certain intervals. Ducatis have very expensive services at certain intervals, 50,000, 100,000 miles. You will see bikes go up for sale right around those times because they're just gonna sell it and move on to a new one rather than pay $1,000 or $2,000 for that service, which you'll be on the hook for as soon as you get it. That's information that's worth having ahead of time once you've figured out exactly which bike you're looking for. What are the major service intervals? So you have some idea what's coming up when you look at the mileages of the bikes. What are the valve adjustment intervals? Does it need a top end rebuild at a certain amount of time? That could be hours kilometers or miles. These are things you need to know because you don't want to get a bike and then immediately have to put $5,000 into it to make it reliable and trustworthy. Another note is, right now, in KTM in particular, I don't know if anyone else is doing this, but all KTMs from 2025 on, with like 3 exceptions, one of which is the KTM 500 XCF, which is weird. If you do all your services at the dealership, they're doubling the warranty to 4 years. So that's worth asking on a 2025 and up KTM. Have you done your services at the dealership? Because then you know if you keep doing that, you get to keep that extended warranty, and if they haven't, you probably won't be able to take advantage of that. Number 5, ask why they're selling. Again, it's usually to upgrade or I just don't ride it very much, but if it's not clear or their reason seems like it doesn't make any sense, that's a red flag because they could be selling it because there's something wrong with it and they're just trying to pawn it off on you. Number 6, find out the title status before you go look at the bike. I've made this mistake more than once. Do you have the title in hand? Yes or no? Is the title in your name? Now, at least here in Oregon, all they really care when I show up at the DMV is that the title is signed by the person whose name is on the front. I've never had them say, did you buy it from this person? I try to hand them a bill of sale and they just give it back to me every time. That depends a lot on who you get at the DMV and what the DMV is like in your state. But ideally, that title is signed by them and it is in their name. Well, it's not signed yet, but it will be when you buy it. So ask, do you have the title and is it in your name? Number 7, always offer less than the asking price unless the price is insanely good already, which is a red flag, unless they just have a really clear reason like, I gotta pay for my kid's braces and I gotta pay that payment tomorrow, so I gotta offload this. Something that makes sense. If they're just like selling it super cheap, it could be freaking stolen or it's a basket case, you don't know. So just be aware, but I never pay full price, I always offer less. Some people get anxious about this. They're like, what if I make them mad? If they say no, you just pay the full price. If you were okay with it in the first place, they're not gonna be like, well, screw you, you can't buy it now. They're just gonna be like, I can't really come down on the price, but always ask. And you'll notice these days, a lot of people price things for weird amounts. So if you see a bike listed for $5,300, they're planning on selling that bike for $5,000. I do this every time. I almost always put it 500 above what I'm willing to take because I just know somebody's gonna come in and lowball me or at least try to talk me down, and this way we both get to feel good about it. Always offer less. Always say, would you take 5,000? And if they're like, I don't know, I've got a lot of people looking at it, or I've got this much into it, or I'm not really willing to budge on the price yet, you decide if it's worth that extra money to you. Usually it is if you were looking at it this seriously anyway. Man, if you can get that 500 knocked down, that's a lot of gas, new tires, mods, whatever you need. So always ask if the price will come down. It's not rude, it's normal. Just don't be a dick if they say no. Number 8, when you go to the place, pay attention to your surroundings when you go to check out the bike. Is it in an operating room, clean, meticulously organized garage? Buy the bike right now. You definitely should buy it. Is it in a sketchy shithole with rusted out, poorly maintained machines everywhere and lawnmower parts on the wall? Run. Again, common sense, but some people get so excited about the purchase, they don't look at their surroundings. You can tell a lot about a person and how they've maintained their bike by what their garage and other surroundings look like. Number 9, ask about the history. Was it ridden in 25 hare scramble races without an oil change, or has it been a garage queen? These things matter. It's one of the advantages of buying private parties, so always ask. What's the history of the bike? Where have you ridden it? What have you done with it? Have you been doing oil changes regularly? This is all information that an owner should be willing to disclose immediately. If they're not, again, red flag. And then number 10, this is a multi-part tip. I'm not a mechanic, so I've stated that a bazillion times on this channel. Do not take my advice mechanically. Take your own mechanic with you, consult with somebody else. You can always have a mechanic look at the bike for you if you're not sure. But here's what I look at when I go to look at a bike. It's not everything, but it's what I think of off the top of my head. 1, does it start right up and run smoothly? And always check it first. Is the bike cold when you start it? Because maybe the bike starts really roughly, but they've just been running it until you walked up. You want a cold or a mostly cold start, and it should fire right up. Carbureted bikes are the exception to this because they sometimes will need a little choke, a little bit of time to warm up, but they should run smoothly once they're warmed up, and you should be able to shut it off and start it right back up. If you can't, it's a question. Does it look well maintained? I always like to look at the chain. Is there surface rust on the chain, or has it been cleaned? Is that a deal breaker? No. Is a rusty chain bad? Not necessarily. The bike's not going to explode, but it's telling about the level of detail and the level of maintenance that bike has received. If the chain is clean, you know they're cleaning everything else. If it's rusty and obviously neglected, who knows what else they've neglected. Are there signs the bike's been sitting? Surface rust in other areas? Are there cobwebs or like just general obvious neglect, dust up inside parts that maybe a quick wipe down wouldn't get? Because if it's been sitting and not running, then you need to ask questions about that. Does the bike match the pictures you saw? Is the mileage the same? Are all the mods there? Sometimes people will just post old pictures, particularly if it's like a picture from a trip. Always double check that the bike has all the things that you thought it had on it, because sometimes they'll pull off their luggage and their tank bags and their double take mirrors and all that stuff just gets in a box, and you show up looking for one bike and it's not the bike that you're buying. Sit on the bike. Does it feel right? Are there weird noises? Is it sagging? Does it squeak or bind? Does the suspension compress but not come back up? Again, you don't have to be an expert to know that a motorcycle feels a certain way, and when you sit on it, it's wrong. That's a red flag. Push the bike back and forth, both with the clutch pulled in gear and in neutral. Are the brakes dragging? Is there any resistance or binding? Anything that you shouldn't be feeling? Listen to the chain. Is it going over the sprockets smoothly, or is it catching and binding and kind of crunkling up? That'll tell you something. Ride the bike, and they should let you ride the bike. Sometimes they want to hold the money. I hope they let you ride it. That doesn't always happen, and you have to decide if that's worth it to you, but you should at least be able to start it up. If you ride the bike, does it run well? Any hesitation when you start off, when you shift gears? Anything dragging or making noise? Does it shift smoothly? Does it feel right? Take a look at the oil. Does it look good? Is it fresh? Or is it just like black and runny and obviously neglected? Sometimes bikes sit and people sell them, but you'll know that because you ask the history. If they're like, oh yeah, I take care of it. I've been riding it all the time. I've been super up on the maintenance, and you pull that dipstick and the oil looks like freaking diarrhea, then it's a problem, and you don't want to buy that bike, or at least so they're being dishonest in some way. Is the bike clean? Again, not a deal breaker. These are dual sports adventure bikes. They get dirty. My 390 is dirty right behind me, and I rarely clean them off before I sell them, but I will spray them down. I care enough that I want it to look decent when the person comes to look at it, but if it's just like nasty and it's never been cleaned off and they didn't care enough to spray off like a bunch of mud, that tells you something. It doesn't need to be detailed out, like I said, but it does at least look like they care about the bike. You want to buy a bike someone cared about. Check the tire dates. There is a date on every set of tires manufactured in the last, 10 years. So there's numbers all over the tire, but there'll be a different looking patch where it's obviously stamped on. They're the ones that are in the mold, that's the tire size and all that, but there'll be a small patch where it's just stamped in, and the last 2 digits of that number are the year the tires were made. If they're more than 5 years old, that's a problem. Are they cracking? Are they dry rotted? Take a look at that. Look at the voltage indicator if it has one on the dash. Make sure it's above 12 volts while it's sitting and 13 or 14 when it's running. Less than that could indicate a problem with the battery or the charging system, or they say to you, yeah, it's been sitting, which means the battery probably needs to be replaced. Just know that going in. 1 or 2 issues here that I've mentioned are not deal breakers, but you should use them to try and negotiate the price down. Hey, it's gonna cost me $100 to get a new battery. Will you knock that off the price? Hey, you haven't done an oil change and I wanna take it to the dealer because I wanna keep the warranty going. That's gonna cost $500. Would you be willing to come down some on the price? However, if there are multiple issues here, you're seeing a ton of things, like you sit on it, it's creaking weird, it doesn't start up right away, and the rear brake is dragging, I don't know, I might find another bike. Unless you're just a mechanic who likes to work on stuff, and then you can negotiate the price down accordingly. But multiple issues is a problem. 1 or 2, you have to decide if it's fixable or not. This is a very long video already. So like I said, I could talk about this all day, but there's no way you could possibly absorb all that information, so let's just stop here. If there's any interest in further insight or more details, maybe I'll make a follow-up video later on. Let me know in the comments. If you do have questions I didn't answer, leave them in the comments. If you have experience buying bikes, maybe pop in and answer some of those questions. I'm not an expert, but as a community, we have a wealth of knowledge. As a community, we literally know everything. So if we can help each other answer questions, tap into that knowledge, we should when we can. Let's try to do that in the comments section to help out our new buyers. Thanks again to Quadlock for sponsoring this video and the channel. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to the channel because I'm the dork in the road, and I want to be your internet riding buddy, and I'm better than your regular riding buddies because I come with a mute button. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Please do not forget to be excellent to each other. Thank you.
Excellent!